The restricted access trafficking note appeared before anyone at Ashford Police checked the visitor waiting log for Commonwealth Square. Amara Whitfield did not know that yet. She was standing beside Founders Basin, one hand holding the strap of a sealed legal case, the other resting near the phone on the stone ledge, waiting for her father to finish a meeting that had run past the start of his birthday dinner. The appointment was real. Her name was in the government visitor system. The legal case belonged to her. The tamper seal was intact. The federal filing number matched her attorney account. For 3 quiet seconds, that should have been the entire record. Amara had reached Commonwealth Square at 5:38 that Saturday afternoon, wearing a navy travel blazer, dark trousers, and flat shoes marked by airport dust. She had come from Washington for her father's 60th birthday. Her overnight bag was already at his house. The legal case remained with her because it contained sealed client documents due for filing Monday morning. Her father had sent one message: meeting running late, wait at the basin. She answered with a photograph of the bakery box she had carried from the station. The place mattered to them. Years earlier, before Amara's mother became ill, her parents had met beside the same fountain after work. Her father still returned there when he needed to remember who he had been before elected office and security details. Amara was not thinking about any of that when the patrol car slowed near the curb. Officer Cole Maddox was driving. Officer Martin Shea sat beside him, one hand around a paper coffee cup. Earlier, Maddox had spoken to a white lobbyist standing near the staff entrance with 2 document tubes. He asked the man to move toward the public waiting area. No identification. No field contact. A tourist had photographed a restricted access sign from several feet away. Maddox pointed toward the painted boundary line and told him to step back. The tourist apologized. That contact also ended without a record. Then Maddox saw Amara. His attention moved from her face to the structured leather case at her side. She checked the government building, then her phone, then the building again. "What do you think she is waiting for?" Maddox asked. Shea looked through the windshield. "Probably a person. She is standing close to the staff route. She is still on the public side." Maddox pulled to the curb. 2 minutes. He opened a pedestrian contact screen before leaving the car. The field marked "Reported Conduct" before contact remained blank. Amara heard the doors close behind her. Maddox approached first. "Ma'am, what are you doing here?" "Waiting for a family member." "Which building did they come from?" Amara looked toward the Capitol offices. "Is there a security problem?" "I asked who you are waiting for." She did not answer immediately. Maddox's eyes settled on the legal case. "Identification. Am I being investigated for a specific act?" "This is a protected government area. I am standing on a public walkway." Shea stopped a few feet behind Maddox. He could see the white boundary line near Amara's shoes. She had not crossed it. Maddox held out his hand. "Identification." Amara decided not to turn a simple encounter into a larger one. "My wallet is inside the front pocket of the case. I will open only that section." She placed the case on the stone ledge, keeping the sealed compartment closed. She removed her driver's license and handed it over. Maddox ran the name. "Valid license. No warrants." A protected federal clearance indicator appeared without details. He looked at the result, then at Amara. "What is inside the case?" "Client material." "Open it." "The sealed compartment contains privileged documents. I do not consent to a search." Maddox glanced at the tamper strip. "You expect me to accept that without checking?" "The filing number is visible on the seal. Government security can verify it without opening the case." Shea looked at the number. "That is a court tracking format." Maddox ignored him. "Do you have proof you own the case?" Amara's patience tightened. "Are you asking me for a receipt because I am carrying legal documents in public?" The question came out sharper than she intended. She paused. Then she lowered her voice. "Please identify the conduct that makes the case subject to inspection." Maddox entered a new line on the contact screen. Subject: concealing contents of restricted access case. Across the square, Caleb Dunn stood beside a service doorway. He had checked the visitor terminal less than 10 minutes earlier. The name Amara Whitfield was still on the waiting list. He watched Maddox take one step closer. Caleb's badge gave him access to the security desk. It did not protect him from being accused of interfering with police. He remained where he was. Maddox pointed toward the street. "You need to leave the square." "Under which ordinance?" "You are interfering with perimeter security." Amara's phone vibrated against the stone ledge. She turned slightly toward it. Maddox seized her wrist. The phone slipped to the pavement. Amara looked down. Maddox pulled her away from the case. On your knees. She did not resist. I am complying. Record that the case remains sealed. Shay saw the unbroken strip. He said nothing. The cuffs closed around Amara's wrists, while the reported conduct field on Maddox's screen was still blank. Amara lowered herself onto the pavement without pulling against Maddox's grip. The legal case remained on the stone ledge. Its seal was still intact. Shay stood close enough to read the filing number. He also stood close enough to stop the arrest. He did neither. Maddox pulled Amara's hands behind her and closed the cuffs. What is the charge? She asked. Perimeter interference. What conduct created that offense? You refused a lawful security inspection. I refused a warrantless search of privileged material. Maddox tightened his hold on her arm. You keep trying to control the contact. Amara looked toward Shay. Did you observe me cross the boundary line? Shay glanced at the painted stripe near the fountain. No. Maddox turned sharply. Martin. Shay stopped speaking. Across the square, Nora Bellamy stood inside her stationery shop with one hand on the security console. Her exterior camera had captured Amara before the officers arrived, standing still, checking her phone, never crossing the security line. Nora selected the original video file and began a local export. She did not upload it. The last time she gave officers a cloud link, the department returned a compressed copy without complete metadata. This time, she saved the original recording and generated a file hash. Maddox lifted Amara to her feet. Her phone remained on the pavement. The screen lit with another incoming call. Dad. Maddox glanced at it, then looked away. He did not touch the phone. Amara said, Please place it with my property. Shay picked it up and turned the screen face down. Maddox took the legal case from the ledge. He examined the seal, then carried it toward the patrol car. Amara called after him. The tracking number confirms ownership. Do not break the seal. Maddox opened the trunk. He placed the case inside and entered a property description on his tablet. Structured case, ownership unconfirmed, possible restricted access material. The tracking number remained visible beneath his hand. On the way to the precinct, Maddox used the radio. Adult female detained near the staff perimeter. Refused inspection. Ignored relocation order. Reached towards secured materials. No caller had reported her. No security officer had requested police contact. No restricted item had been seen. Amara sat behind the partition. The relocation order had no stated legal basis. Maddox looked at her in the rearview mirror. You can explain that at booking. Shay watched the mobile terminal. The offense field was still incomplete. At 5:48, 2 minutes after the cuffs closed, Maddox added, possible restricted access trafficking. Amara heard the keyboard. Preserve the time that entry was made. Neither officer answered. At Commonwealth Square, Caleb Dunn waited until the patrol car turned out of sight. Then he entered the service corridor. The visitor terminal still showed. Amara Whitfield. Family guest. Founder's Basin. Arrival window confirmed. Caleb knew he should have said something before the arrest. He also knew the log could disappear from the active screen after the meeting window closed. He opened the archive menu and submitted a preservation request. He included the contact time and patrol unit number. He did not know who Amara's father was. At Ashford Police Headquarters, Sergeant Renee Porter received the arrest packet. She read the first page, then the second, then she checked the timestamps. Where is the observed offense before contact? Maddox pointed toward the trafficking entry. That was added after the arrest. She refused inspection. Porter looked at the case in the property bin. Did you have a warrant? No. Did building security request the inspection? No. She was near a restricted route. Near is not inside. Maddox crossed his arms. She was evasive. Porter looked at Amara. What did you refuse? A search of sealed client documents. Porter examined the tamper strip. The filing number linked to an attorney chain of custody record. Owner, Amara Whitfield. Seal status, active. No access events. Porter changed the property category. Sealed professional materials. Do not open without privilege review. Maddox objected. Porter ignored him. She then opened the partner confirmation screen. Officer Shay observed relocation noncompliance and movement toward restricted materials. Shay read the sentence, It needs correction. Maddox looked at him. You were standing there. Yes. Then approve it. Shay selected supplemental observation instead. He typed slowly. No reported offense observed before contact. Subject remained on public side of boundary. Case remains sealed. No movement toward case after detention began. I did not intervene when the contact escalated. He submitted the statement. Porter entered Amara's name into the custody system. A warning appeared. State executive legal conflict. External preservation required. Porter did not announce it. She locked the arrest report, booking video, property log, body camera files, and every report draft. Then she contacted the state inspector general liaison. Across town, Leon Whitfield's birthday cake remained unopened. His phone rang before the candles were lit. By the time Maddox learned that Amara was the Attorney General's daughter, the evidence proving the arrest unlawful had already been preserved by people who did not know her last name mattered. 4 weeks later, Special Counsel Vivian Ross opened the administrative hearing with the arrest timeline. Attorney General Leon Whitfield was not seated with the panel. He had signed a formal recusal from the charging decision. He sat beside Amara for the first 10 minutes, then left before testimony began. Ross placed the sealed legal case on the evidence table. No one opened it. At 5:34, she said, the Commonwealth Square visitor system added Amara Whitfield as a family guest. The entry listed Founders Basin as the meeting point. At 5:38, Nora Bellamy's exterior camera recorded Amara waiting on the public side of the security line. At 5:40, Cole Maddox opened a pedestrian contact. The field marked reported conduct before contact remained blank. At 5:41, Amara's identification cleared. No warrants, no security alert, no request from Capitol staff. At 5:42, Maddox ordered her to open the legal case. At 5:43, Amara refused consent and identified the contents as privileged. Maddox entered concealment behavior. At 5:45, he ordered her to leave the square. No ordinance appeared in the report. At 5:46, the cuffs closed. At 5:48, possible restricted access trafficking appeared for the first time. Ross turned the display toward Maddox. The suspected offense was entered after the arrest. Maddox said he had been conducting a proactive perimeter check. Ross opened the visitor log. The perimeter already had a verification source. He said Amara had acted evasive. Ross opened the body camera transcript. She provided identification, stated why the case could not be opened, and offered a filing number. Maddox said she reached toward the case. Nora's video showed the case still on the ledge, while Maddox held Amara's wrist. Shay's supplemental report said the same. Ross lifted the original property record. Ownership unconfirmed. Then she placed the attorney chain of custody log beside it. Owner, Amara Whitfield. Seal status, active. Created before police contact. No access events. Ross asked Maddox to read both entries aloud. He read the property note first. Then the ownership log. The room remained quiet. Ross advanced to the next screen. Concealment behavior. She displayed the audio of Amara offering the visible filing number. Maddox read that entry aloud as well. Finally, Ross displayed possible restricted access trafficking beside the cuff timestamp. The offense appeared 2 minutes after Amara had already been restrained. Maddox stopped reading. Ross waited. He finished the line. The panel did not describe the encounter as a misunderstanding. Its finding was narrower and more damaging. The officer had treated refusal to surrender privileged material as evidence of criminal intent, then created an offense after detention to justify the decision already made. Maddox was terminated for cause. He was not permitted to convert the termination into retirement or resignation in good standing. His certification was referred to the State Board for revocation. An independent prosecutor received the file for unlawful detention, false reporting, and misuse of police authority. He was also barred from public safety employment requiring arrest, detention, or evidence handling authority while the state review remained open. 6 earlier pedestrian contacts with blank pre-contact conduct fields were reopened. 2 trespass notices were withdrawn. 1 arrest record was vacated. A delivery worker received compensation for lost wages and towing expenses after an earlier detention built on the same post-contact reasoning. Another woman received a corrected incident report showing that her refusal to open a personal bag had never created probable cause. Each affected person received the original record, the corrected finding, and the name of the officer who entered the unsupported offense. Martin Shea lost field training authority permanently. He served a suspension and received a formal failure to intervene finding. That finding remained visible in every future promotion, assignment, and retirement reference review. His supplemental report reduced the penalty. It did not erase the fact that he had possessed the authority to stop the arrest before Amara's knees touched the pavement. Sergeant Renee Porter retained her position. She was assigned to design a new intake rejection rule because she had identified the timestamp problem before the conflict alert revealed Amara's family connection. Chief Edwin Price lost authority to close bias-related pedestrian complaints for 1 year. An external monitor took control of the review process. Ashford adopted the pre-contact basis and consent protection rule. Officers now had to record an observed act before requesting identification during discretionary pedestrian contacts. Refusal to consent could not be entered as suspicion. Relocation orders required an ordinance, closure notice, or written security directive. Probable cause added after a cuff timestamp triggered automatic external review. Partners submitted independent observations before seeing the primary report. Sealed professional material required a warrant or privilege review. Government visitor logs became visible on patrol terminals. Booking supervisors had to reject arrests without an underlying offense. The department also audited 3 years of pedestrian contacts. 11 records contained offenses entered only after detention began. 4 were corrected. 3 were referred for external investigation. 2 supervisors lost sign-off authority. The remaining files were sent to affected citizens with instructions for requesting review or compensation. Amara did not accept a position from her father. Months later, she was selected through an open process as outside counsel for the team rebuilding the complaint intake system. Her contract was public. Leon's office had no role in choosing her. His delayed birthday dinner took place 1 week after the hearing. There were no officials at the table. The legal case rested beside the unopened bakery box. The tamper seal had lifted slightly at one corner. Amara pressed it flat with one finger, placed the case inside the drawer beneath the table, and carried the cake into the dining room. This is a fictional story.